else I hear? Well, I've been wanting to make an intarsia for a while, and I have this barn pattern by Judy Gale Roberts, so I'm excited to get started on it. So one of the hardest things for me is picking out the wood for the project. I'm looking at Judy's picture that she always sends along with her patterns, which are awesome, and I'm seeing, okay, what do I want to do for the colors? What I picked out so far is this fir for the ground, this blue pine for the barn, this purple for the sky, and I'm not for sure how I want to do the roof of the barn, if I want to make it out of this or this darker blue pine. We'll have to see as we're going along. Then this is a pod, and when you cut it in half it looks like a tree. So I thought for these bushes over here I would make trees out of the pod. We'll see how that works. And then I have juniper for the clouds, some walnut for the cart and the other brown areas, some cedar. Oh, cedar was going to be for the trees, but I want to do the other thing for the trees. And then this is a spalted maple that I thought would be perfect for the hay bales. So I'm really excited to get going. So I laid out the original pattern and a bunch of copies that I made. And I started cutting out the paper pieces of the pattern. I used blue tape on the little pieces of wood, and I used peel and stick on the larger pieces of wood. And a roller works better than that little frosting spreader for doing this, I've discovered. Then I arranged how I wanted the pieces on the wood. I used 3M 77 spray glue, and I love this stuff. I used a stick to hold the pieces down because they'll fly away when you spray them otherwise. Then I put the pieces on the boards, keeping in mind the grain of the wood and how I want it to go on the pattern. And what's really nice about Judy Gale Roberts patterns is she has a little arrow pointing which direction that you want the wood grain to go that would work best with the pattern. And I always get really excited when I get a project rolling. So here's a little bit of my excitement dance. I'm excited. I used my Hegner scroll saw and Advanced Machinery blades. And I used mostly a number 7 for this project. I cut all of the pieces and then placed them onto the pattern. Cut another wagon wheel in a different wood so I could change out the inner parts of the one I was keeping. I used my wood clamp to hold the really tiny small pieces that I had to cut. And I used a rubber band in a few areas to hold small sections together. This Banksia pod cuts pretty well. The little holes are surrounded by harder wood, so they cut slower through those spots. And the outside has these little fuzzy orange balls. It's pretty neat. I scored the lines on the barn using an X-Acto knife, and this will guide my wood burner when I burn the lines in. And this did take a while. I took the paper patterns off the barn pieces after scoring each one. Then took most of the other papers off too. I also made a little line on the backs of the pieces so I would know that it was the back, because sometimes it just gets really confusing. Then I decided right away that I didn't like the juniper clouds, so I cut some new ones using camphor burl, which is an orangey, swirly wood, and I thought with the purple sky it would look really cool. Plus it smells really good too. I opened up the big door of the shop and sanded with the pneumatic drum sander. This was really awesome dust control. I found out from the company that this Woodtech sander is no longer available, and I've had a lot of people ask me about it, so that's really a bummer. But I do have a few recommendations for pneumatic drum sanders, and I will put them in the description box below. Then I hand sanded and super glued little sections together so that they would be easier to deal with, including the wagon wheel with the little inner pieces and the hay between the wagon poles. Alrighty, so now, Judy Gale Roberts said that she made the lines on the barn by using a wood burner. So I got my coal wood out, and I'm going to try to wood burn the parts on the barn. I sanded it first, and now I'm going to do the wood burning. A little bit nervous about it, so we'll see how it goes. Having the lines scored with the X-Acto knife really helped because it really guided the hot tip. And it really made the blue pine look like old barn wood. It's just a subtle touch, but it made a real difference, and I really like it. These darker pieces are supposed to sit a little bit lower, so I took them to the belt sander. Sorry, the camera focused on my arm instead of the sander. Then I hand sanded them with 150 and 220 and put them back in their places. And continued sanding and sanding and sanding. I marked the clouds and sanded them with our new to us Delta drum sander that just happened to have a pneumatic drum on it too. It needs a little work, but you gotta love garage sales. And I was really enjoying that camphor burl smell. I cut out a piece of backer and I transferred everything to it. For the shadows cast by the barn and the door and the wagon, I used walnut Danish oil. I glued some 1/4-inch plywood risers on a few of the pieces just to give them a boost. So I've decided I'm just going to glue everything down. As I'm gluing, I'm going to do the final sanding, which is different than normal for me, but that's the way I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it on this big, huge piece of backer board because my neighbor gave me this awesome rustic fence board. And I'm going to use that for the frame. So that other piece of hardboard I cut out, I will use for a different project. So I moved it over to this big backer board and glued and adjusted any pieces that needed it too. I used a toothbrush to spread the glue and that worked out really well. No bristles came off like some of those paintbrushes do. I applied this General Finishes gel top coat to the barn. The best way to apply this would be before it's glued down so that each piece can be thoroughly coated. But I didn't do it that way. I wiped it on and used a brush to get into the areas I couldn't reach and then wiped it off. I applied 3 coats and lightly sanded between each coat, which would have been easier if it wasn't glued down already, but oh well. Guess I'm doing a lot of things different with this project. I cut those awesome fence posts to size and I took them outside and I sprayed them with acrylic spray. And I'm just going to directly glue them right on top of that huge backer board. And when they were dry, I did just that. And that's the whole reason I had to make a bigger backer. Because the hardboard, that's the backer of this piece, is so dark, I've noticed that the transfer technique doesn't show up on it very well. So I decided to just take another little piece of wood, a thin piece of pine, and I'm going to put the verse and my logo and signature onto that little piece of pine, and then I'll glue that to the back of the barn. And the verse I chose is Proverbs 3, 9, and 10. It says, "Honor the Lord with your wealth and the first fruits from all your crops. Then your barns will be full and your wine barrels will overflow with new wine." And I thought that was the perfect verse for this barn. Okay, the barn is all finished, and I did put the verse on the back and a hanger. Yay! So, this video, I shortened this video up a lot because this barn took me a lot longer than I showed in the video, and I ended up redoing things a few times. And I really like the orange camphor burl clouds and the purple sky. I'm not sure if I like the pod trees very much, but they're different, so that's kind of cool. I really love the blue pine and how it looks like barn wood. And I really like the rustic frame. So this pattern is a Judy Gale Roberts pattern, and I will put a link down in the description box for anybody who wants to get the pattern. Thanks for joining me, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Bye!